That saying in the cards, like a picnic's not in the cards today, it's raining outside, that was actually a Victorian age idiom that referenced tarot cards. So we can already see that tarot is centuries old. But in fact, tarot historians actually believe that tarot was invented in ancient Egypt. Unfortunately, paper wasn't invented back then. So the tarot that we think of today can be traced back to 15th century Europe, specifically Italy and France. In these countries, tarot was actually used as a game. The imagery on these cards were meant to represent everyday scenes so that anyone who picks it up can play the game. As an example of this, in front of me, I have Metelli's version of the Tarocchino deck. This came out in 16th century Italy, and similar to the tarot deck that we think of today, it has 4 suits and trump cards. The difference between that is that it has 62 cards, and the numbered 2 through 5 cards in the minor arcana are taken out. So in the top row, we have 3 cards of the major arcana, the trump cards. We have the sun represented by Apollo, the world is represented by Atlas, and love represented by Cupid, or in these days, what would be considered the Lover's card. In the bottom, we have the 10 of Pentacles, the Knight of Swords, and the Page of Cups. Neither of these people are doing anything spectacular. And in the 10 of Pentacles, we see in each coin someone doing something interesting or just day to day, like playing a violin or painting. And if we compare it to the major arcana today, we can see that the imagery gets way more artistic and it gets way more interpretive as we go on. So this is where the essence of prophecy and imagination and creativity comes into play when we talk about tarot today. It all starts with the Rider-Waite deck. So now we're moving into the turn of the century where the Rider-Waite deck was originated. And this is the most popular deck. It's the most well-known deck. It's the one that every tarot deck after, and what we know of today, has based their principles on. It is the beginning of the 78 card deck with the 4 suits and the 22 major arcana cards and 56 minor arcana cards. So where did the Rider-Waite deck come from? In fact, Arthur Edward Waite was part of a secret occultist society in the Victorian age called the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And this group in the 1890s was all about astrology and paranormal activity and herbalism and alchemy. It was everything under the rug, under the carpet that people were into but weren't exactly talking about. In this group, he met Pamela Colman Smith, who was an illustrator and a tarot reader herself, and he partnered up with her on making the first 78 card tarot deck that actually was adapted from the 78 card Tarot de Marseille. So together, they collaborated on making something that wasn't just a game, something that wasn't just everyday scenes. In fact, we can attribute the minor arcana and all of its imagery to Pamela Colman Smith. She was the one who actually came up with all of these illustrations. A.E. Waite was only considering the major arcana and only really cared about the major arcana. So he said, this is what I want it to look like. Here's the Christian imagery that I want you to portray in these images. That's what I want in the major arcana. But for the minor arcana, he just gave her the meanings and said, go for it. You do what you will as an artist. So although she's actually super important, her name was left out of the original deck because A.E. Waite partnered up with the Rider Publishing Company. So it ended up becoming Rider-Waite instead of Rider-Waite-Smith. It was referenced as Rider-Waite-Smith in some cases, but in most cases, it was just Rider-Waite. Nowadays, you can find decks that are Waite-Smiths. So we do have some attribution to Pamela Smith, but she didn't quite get the recognition she deserves.